Well, good morning, everybody. How are we doing here in the room? Good, awesome. Those of you joining us online, thanks for joining us out there on our YouTube stream. So good to see you. My name is Jason. I'm the pastor here at Life Church, and we're so glad that you're choosing to hang out with us here this morning. It's great to see some friendly faces out there in the room and those joining online. As always, each time we get together, we do invite you to take a moment to fill out our digital connection card, which you can find in our Life Church app, in your smartphone, in your cell phone, in your app stores. Just search Life Church Lancaster, you'll find us. The app's a helpful tool to stay connected. You're going to hear a little bit more about the app today because there's different things that are happening, and we're going to keep saying, go to the app and get more information. And so if you don't have our app, now's a great time to download it. So anyway, thanks for being here. We got a good morning plan for us. We're starting into a new teaching series called A Brave New Church. We're going to be thinking about the church for the next couple of weeks as we kind of come out of a post-COVID world, or we're trying to, as a culture, come out of a COVID world. And also, we want you to kind of see some of the things that are happening here at Life Church and some ways to get connected and involved. And so you're going to meet some of our leaders over the next few weeks. And so we're glad you're here today to kind of start that process. And so anyway, glad you're here this morning. We got a great morning in store for you. So just sit back and relax. And I'm going to turn it over to the band, and they're going to take it from here. So lead us in some songs.
And actually, don't sit back and relax. So if you are willing and able, stand on up and do as you feel. You can sing, you can clap, you can dance, because our God is not dead.
My love's so bold to see revolution.
His love is holy. Love is patient. Love is celebrating joy in every life.
Love is patient, love is kind, love is celebrating joy in every life. Love protects, love relieves, love is persevering in each other's need. On and on and we are living in your love. On and love is written in our holy love. Love admits I was wrong. Love is waiting with the weight of what we've done. Love forgives when it's time, giving strength to say the words we cannot find. On and on, we are living in your love. On and on, love is written in our blood. Holy love, holy love receives, love responds. Love believes that we are more than what we've done. Love commits to the light. Love is running from the darkness into light. Holy love, holy love, holy On and on, we are living in your love. On and on, love is written in our blood. On and on, we are living in your love. On and on, love is written in our blood.
Love is written in our blood, your love, Lord. Blessed are the ones that you call and you walk with. Blessed are those who walk in kindness, even in the face of great abuse. Blessed are the deeds that go unnoticed, serving with unguarded gratitude. The kingdom is yours.
Blessed are the ones who do not bear all the broken pieces of their heart. Blessed are the tears of all the weary, pouring like a sky of falling stars. Blessed are the
still have strength to love the enemy. Blessed is the faith of those who persevere. Though they fall, they'll never know defeat. The kingdom is yours. The kingdom is yours. Hold on a little more. This is not the end. Hope is in the Lord. Keep your eyes on Him. The kingdom is yours. Hold on a little more. This is not the end. Hope is in the Lord. Keep your eyes on Him. Hold on a little more. This is not the end. Hope is in the Lord. Keep your eyes on Him. Help us to keep our eyes on you today and every day, through the highs and the lows. Our hope is you. Be our strength, be our hope. Show us your love. We thank you. Amen.
All right, yes, you may be seated. Once again, I'm Jason. Thanks for being here. So glad you're joining with us today on this fine Sunday morning. Thanks, band, for leading us in those songs. That was fantastic. So good to see you. And we're just glad you're engaging with Life Church as we continue to sort of on our own journey of reopening. Some of you may have noticed, and this is why you're here, because we have some kids programming happening today. Our kids volunteers are engaging with some of your kids out there, outside. We're doing that every other week right now until our fall full reopening, which we're targeting for September 12th, when hopefully we'll have our kids programming fully up and running. So every week, which is a big step. So anyway, but if you're new to Life Church, or if you're just kind of checking us out or engaging, a special welcome to you. Thanks for being here. One of the things we like to say here at Life Church is, wherever you're at on your spiritual journey, you're welcome here. We recognize that we're all sort of walking along this spiritual road at different places. Some of you are maybe just getting started in a Christian journey. Some of you have walked away from the spiritual journey or the Christian journey for a long season. Maybe you've got some angst around this. Maybe you've got some questions or doubts about God and faith and Christianity and a lot of that. Wherever you're at, we're glad you're here, and our hope for you is that you would find some encouraging community and connect with Jesus a little bit in some way, maybe through the teaching, maybe through a relationship, maybe through some of the singing. That's something resonates deeply within your soul and your spirit. And so we're glad that you're here, wherever you're at on that journey. You're welcome here. And so, as I mentioned earlier, we encourage everybody to take a minute to fill out that connection card, that digital connection card you can find in our app. So if you didn't do that yet, please take a minute. Just jump on our Life Church app. Let us know you're here. This is really helpful to us as we continue in this sort of world where we got some online, we got some watching later, we have some here in the room. It's just good to know who's engaging, who we're serving with, here at Life Church. And so take a minute to do that if you can. There's a couple of things, and one other thing, as many of you invest financially here at Life Church, we're grateful for that. Thank you for your sacrificial gifts, donations, tithes, offerings. Thanks for investing in that way. There's a lot of ways to give here at Life Church. If you want to do that, a lot of that information is in our app, and so you can check that out that way. But thank you for those of you who invest. A couple of quick things I want to mention before we kind of segue into another part of our time here this morning is we are doing another hike. So we've been letting you know about this. We have a hike coming down the pike. August 14th, the Climbers Run. There's information on it in the app there. So these are something we've been doing. You say, is this, what kind of church is this? What are we doing hikes for? We're doing hikes to just get to know folks because, again, we're coming out of this long season of COVID. So many of you have engaged with us online. Some of you still maybe aren't comfortable being in this space, in the room, and we're trying to get to know one another, and we think we can also like meet God outside, outdoors. There's a real strong, nature is a powerful way to connect with God, and so together, if we're out in nature together, we can connect with God, and we can connect with each other there. So if you want to get to know some folks here and get outside and have some fun together, this is our final hike for the summer, and so you haven't missed it yet. August 14th, put it in your calendar and make sure you're there. And then, lastly, yes, I was like, all right, there's another thing. What was it? All right, so we have, for those of you who are volunteers here at Life Church, we're going to talk a little bit more about that this morning, about volunteering here. But for those of you who are volunteering, as we're working towards September 12th and reopening, we're going to have an all-volunteer meeting here at the church directly after service, right? It's directly after service still. All right, on August 29th. So put that in your calendars. You want to be here that Sunday, and we'll finish up church. We'll have a little bit of segue time, and then we'll bring everybody back around, and we're going to have a quick volunteer meeting. It'll be less than an hour. I think there'll be some snacks, potentially. I think that's what it says in the app. Anyway, check the app. There will now be some snacks. So anyway, it's a short meeting to kind of just welcome everybody back. So many of us have been kind of on a hiatus since COVID and all this kind of stuff. So we want to just get everybody on the same page, hang out for a little bit, and chat with you all, cover a few things. Less than an hour, August 29th. If you're not on vacation that day, or if you're not working that day, I hope to see you here that day and hanging out with us for a little bit. We'll hunt you down. We'll watch you. We'll trace you with your social media. We'll find out where you are. All right, so anyway, I'm kidding about all of that, all right? So anyway, but this is August 29th volunteer meeting. So that's happening. Mark your calendars. So I'm really glad now to segue and introduce Mindy Wolfe to you all. She leads a lot of different things here at Life Church. She oversees our volunteers now. She's overseeing our groups programming and has been leading our kids programming for a few years now. And she's going to be talking a little bit about sort of where things are at with volunteers and casting some vision and sharing some things and introducing somebody to you. So I'm going to pass it over to you and let you take it from here. Good?
All right, good morning. I'm super excited to be with you this morning to talk to you about church. It's a really important conversation about church and how it works. So Life Church has been around for about 10 years, and through all the stages and years and different seasons, we have always been an organization fueled primarily by our volunteers. Jason is, wherever he went, Jason is currently our only full-time paid staff, and there are several of us who receive a stipend or a part-time salary, and everyone else is 100% volunteer, which we think is awesome. So this morning, we're going to have a conversation. We're going to start a conversation about church and volunteers, what happens behind the curtain, and most importantly, what we have the opportunity and potential to create and live into together. So we want to peel the curtain back for you. We want you to be able to look behind the scenes. We want to do that together. And I also want to emphasize, we do want to have a conversation. Okay, so your connection card and the I'm interested in volunteering page on the app would be an excellent way to give us input and feedback. So they just showed you the picture. Those two places would be a really easy way on the app for you to give us feedback. So your voice matters. Probably more than you realize at this point, and if I do my job well this morning, hopefully you'll be at least a little bit more clear on how important your voice really is. We are truly wide open to your input. If you are a person who values Life Church, we as the leaders want to know what you think and how you feel about the things we're saying and the directions we're headed. We as a church have an opportunity to birth and to create and to dream up and to live into whatever kind of community we believe that God is leading us to. So now I do want to take just a second and say, depending on where you come from and what your church background might be, I know for some of you, talking about organized religion may make you twitch a little, and then thinking that someone's going to ask you to say something back makes you even more uncomfortable. No one will make you say anything you don't want to say, I promise. We will not come out and approach you with a microphone or anything weird. I do know some of you love church, and you are pumped to have this conversation, which is awesome. And many of us are somewhere in the middle. You've had good and bad experiences with church or organized religion. And I just want to say, wherever you find yourself with whatever feelings you have about church, we're really glad that you're here with us this morning, and we hope that you'll engage however you are willing and able to do so. So, let's jump in. I'm going to start out the conversation this morning with a metaphor and a what-if question. So, what if? What if, it's going to come up, there you go. What if being a part of church is more like being in a carpool than it is like riding a bus? Okay? So, what if Life Church is a carpool more than it's a bus service? So, here's what I mean. If you ride the bus to school or work, or your child rides the bus to school, you know when to be ready to catch the bus. The bus just comes. You don't arrange the time. You don't set up the driver or the vehicle. You don't gas the vehicle. You get your bus assignment and you just show up and hop on the bus. It takes you where you're going. Super easy, very little thought, bam, done. You get where you're going. Now, if you're part of a carpool, that will also take you where you're going. But what you do to get from point A to point B looks really different. So in a carpool, you have to pay attention in a different way if you want it to work. You have to know what's going on and when it's your day to drive and who you're supposed to pick up first and what time you're supposed to be where and where you need to drop them off. You're invested in a different way than just hopping on the bus. So let's kind of say it like this. You're paying attention in a different kind of way when you carpool. So I'm going to suggest, for the sake of this conversation, that our particular local community here at Life Church, that we spend a little bit of time seeing church through the lens of a carpool. A lens or perspective where we are paying attention in a different way than if we just showed up. If church is a bus service, then we can bop in whenever it suits and end up done and out the door when it's over. Easy peasy. Figure out when your service time is, show up, you'll get your church in, and then you're off. And I bet if you've been a part of church for very long, this is probably somewhere in your journey. I'll be real honest, it's definitely in mine. I know what it's like to come in right before the service starts, to sit in the back, to sneak out as soon as it's over, don't make eye contact with anybody, nobody talk to me. I get it, I understand. Sometimes that's what we need, and that's all we can take, and no judgment, that's fine, if that's where you're at. But if church is more like a carpool, maybe you know when your service options are, and you know also what events are happening, or you know what sorts of things have to happen to make a service happen. So we want to recognize, again, that everyone who cares about Life Church is unique. We're not all able to give in the same way financially, or invest our time in the same way on a Sunday morning. We all have other things in our lives. We have full lives in addition to just church, and that's a good thing. Some of you work on the weekends. Some of you spend a lot of time invested in your kids' school PTO. Some of you coach sports teams and take kids on tournaments over the weekends. During sports season, you're not available on Sunday mornings. And some of you do a lot of volunteering in local organizations. We get that, and actually really support that. We really support you living the life that you believe that you are meant to live. So we hope that what you do experience when you're here and what you receive from your time at Life Church encourages you in your daily life, and that it inspires you to see where God is moving in the places where you're spending your time and energy. We hope that your time here makes you feel better equipped to handle different highs and lows that your life will hold. And also, we need you to know that what happens at Life Church is directly correlated to the energy and investments that we collectively are able to make. There are no extra stars or higher statuses given in the spiritual world for the people who show up every Sunday morning. You don't get a lower status here if you work on Sundays or you worked all weekend and you had to sleep in on Sunday. That just isn't a thing. We support everyone doing what you believe your life is calling you to do. However, what is real here is that we are also a volunteered community, a volunteer-fueled community. We can only do what we link arms to do. But we can do whatever we link arms to do. Whatever we collectively invest in is what we will create. So this morning, we're going to start a 3-Sunday series of interviews where I will introduce you to the team leaders in our current volunteer areas. Each team leader is preparing thoughts they want to share with you about their area. They want you to know the important things that they do, or I don't know, whatever they want to share with you about their area. They're all different, and I totally love that. We want you to have the opportunity to hear directly from them so you know who leads the team that you may consider serving on. And we want you to know what they look like and what they sound like. So we'll cover our greeter and events team this week. Next week, we'll cover our family ministries team, and the final week, we'll cover our band and AVL teams. And as we talk through these areas and think about volunteering at church and what it takes to build a community, I really just hope you'll listen. Ask any questions that you may have, and then ask yourself, is my love and support of Life Church enough for me to make an investment in its community now? And if so, what feels right for me in my stage of life, in my situation? Okay? Is my love or support for Life Church enough for me to make an investment in its community right now? And what feels right for me in my stage of life, in my situation? I have to tell you, I get really excited about this kind of conversation because I feel like it's a chance for us to see how God is moving collectively in our community. If we talk through all these areas and introduce you to our different teams, and a bunch of people gravitate towards a certain area, that tells us what matters to us as a collective whole. It shows us what we care about and what we value. It's kind of like opening a window in the spring and letting the fresh air blow in and kind of make things feel new and alive. You know, you open the window and the wind blows in, and then you can turn around and look at your room, you know, and it's the same room, but it has kind of a different feel to it. The wind is blowing through, maybe the sun's hitting a different way. It's familiar, but it has a newness to it, kind of all at once. So over the next couple of weeks, just let's spend some time considering together the opportunity we have to birth, to create, to dream up, literally to live into whatever kind of community we believe God is calling us to. As you listen, ask yourself, how important is this community to me? And where can I pay attention like I would if I were part of the Life Church carpool? Cool? Okay, awesome. Okay, so now I'm going to introduce you to Jamie Shank. Jamie, could you go ahead and come up? Jamie is Life Church's Director of Administration, and one of Jamie's jobs is to lead our greeter and events team. Jamie is the kind of person who's aware of what's happening around her, what people need, where she can step in to help things work more smoothly. I didn't tell her I was going to introduce her, but sorry, I am. She's generous with her time and her resources, and she works hard all the time to help people and teams around her succeed. She's also the kind of woman who will not go down without a fight. If Jamie is on your side, you can be sure she has your back. I'm so glad she uses her gifts and talents here at Life Church and generously steps into so many different spaces in order to help us be stronger. Plus, I find her to be really one of the funniest people I know. So this morning, Jamie's going to tell us what she finds important or helpful for you to know about the greeter and events team.
Well, thank you, Mindy, for that really lovely introduction. And really just the invitation to create and dream something together. It is really very beautiful. Again, I'm Jamie Shank. If you come to in-person services, I probably said hello to you in the lobby, or you see me lingering back against those double doors in the back. It's kind of where I live. So I get the opportunity to lead the guest services and events team here at Life Church. On Sundays, we do some really tangible things. We put all the signs out in the parking lot, we count the chairs, and we prepare the space in anticipation for those who are coming. We love and care for this environment so that when you walk in, you feel welcome here. I believe every person that walks through our doors is honoring us with their time and presence, and really it's our opportunity to say, we're really glad that you're here. We're really glad that you chose to come to Life Church today. So, being a greeter gives me the opportunity to be kind and make connections in ways that feel comfortable to me. So, I am one of the team leads here, but I will tell you, I'm introverted, I'm kind of awkward, I'm a bit anxious, and honestly, most of the time, I'm just like a little damp. But I am really glad that you are here, and I can say hello, Anyone can do that. Trust me. If I can do it, you can do it. We're in this together. Ah, goodness. So, the guest services team is wide open. There is no one type of person or skill set that is best suited here. We want all different kinds of personalities, energy levels, and interests, because ultimately we want to be a reflection of the community we serve. The lobby is our team's main area that we care for, and we do that so that people can gather together, make connections, and build community. So that brings me to the other half of our team, events. So I need to know where my party people are at, the ones that are really great at coming up with ideas, can create an inviting space, the ones who are gifted in hospitality, the ones that love to plan, organize, and coordinate. I have a place for you, and you belong with me. Trust me. Thank you, Taylor Swift. I'm not going to sing. I'm not Amy. Trust me, you don't want that in your life. But so, yes, the band makes beautiful music together, and Kid City loves and influences the next generation, but we are where the fun is at. This is where we celebrate, so welcome. Jason will often come to me and be like, hey, this is what's coming down the pike, and I just want to do something fun. And I'm always like, cool, fun is my middle name, yeah. Listen, guys, it is not. My middle name is Renee, and I need your help, desperately. That is a terrible Jason impression, but he's gonna let it slide. So, referring back to what Mindy said earlier, we have the opportunity to birth, to create, to dream up whatever we want. And we want to invest in the art of celebration, but we need people in our carpool. I really want to encourage you, there we go, to check out the Life Church app and click on the I'm interested in volunteering page just to begin that conversation. Thank you.
Yay. Go ahead, give him. Thanks, Jamie. Thank you. She's funny, right? Okay, thank you guys so much for listening as we get started. This is going to be a really cool time for our community. Going through COVID has been really difficult, and the opportunity now to begin to come back together and to honestly meet each other for the first time, so many of us, and to see how God is moving and how the wind is blowing through our community and what we can dream up together. It's really awesome. So give us your feedback, ask us your questions, ponder some of those questions we gave you, and let's see where God leads us. Thanks.
All right. Well, once again, good morning. I have a couple of thoughts here for us, or some short thoughts. How about that? As we kind of finish our time together here this morning, we're kicking into a new teaching series here, and this is going to be a few weeks. I'm actually kind of like, well, I wonder how long this will be. I'm not sure yet. I have a few different ideas, so we're kind of working our way through this, how long this sermon series will be, not today's sermon. Some of you are like, oh man, I don't know about this place. So anyway, this new teaching series called A Brave New Church, where we're just going to be thinking about what it means to be the church today. Like what does it mean to be engaged in a faith community? As we're talking about volunteering, and I love how Mindy said, like we can do almost anything we want, but together. If we come together, we're able to do a lot of different things. But if we're not interested in that, then we won't do much together. But what does it mean to be a church today in a world that's changing so drastically? I remember it, back February of 2020. I don't know if anybody can think back to February of 2020, but I remember sitting in our living room with our small group, and we were having some conversations about this virus that was happening in China, and the consensus of the group, and we were all like informed Americans watching the news and Twitter, and we got all that, and we're like, oh yeah, we're all fine. No, we don't have to worry about anything. We're good. And then a few weeks later, it's like shut down, right? And we all experienced this together, right? We all went through that, like within a week, the world changed. Our world changed. Church changed. Our lives changed. Our job changed. Everything changed. And that was like 16 months ago. And most churches across the country, we had to make a lot of changes real quick, like every other industry had to in one way or another. And a lot of churches, most churches really haven't fully gotten back to sort of where things were as far as their programming or maybe the engagement, a lot of that kind of stuff. And a lot of us are still trying to figure out what does the new normal look like, right? What is it like? What would be really nice if there was a day when someone would fire a flare and be like, it's over, you know what I mean? Like a hard and fast line. Like there was a week where this all started. Maybe we can make a week where it all stops. That would be great. But I don't think it's going to happen like that. It's going to be a slow fade back into a new normal. What does a post-pandemic normal look like? And there's still a lot going on. There's the Delta variant. There's a lot happening still around this. And so it's not exactly like this is all behind us. But the world has changed, and the world is changing, and it's changing fast, especially, if the pandemic taught us anything, it taught us how quickly everything can change. But what does that mean for the faith communities that exists in our country? What does that mean for our faith community? Something we call the church. How does all the change and the disruption of a worldwide pandemic, of adaptation of technology, rapid cultural changes, social upheaval, all kinds of conversations happen, how does all that play out and affect and impact this thing we call the church? A lot of people would say that the church is outdated, right? This is like old school. This is the old way. Churches are stuck in the past. And what use does this provide to our lives? What value does this provide to our lives anymore? Latest research is actually showing that there's a mass exodus, especially from white evangelical Protestant churches. It's like the fastest shrinking religious demographic in the country. There's some unhealthy things that are happening in that demographic and what was once the largest demographic, in the religious demographic in the country, is now quickly becoming it's not the smallest, but it's not the largest anymore. The world changes fast. Our lives are changing fast. What does this mean for faith communities? What does this mean for the church? So Jesus said something that's going to kind of serve as a foundational idea for the next few weeks as we explore this idea of a brave new church. What does it mean to be a brave new church? I'm sort of playing on that brave new world thing, if you didn't pick that up. We're not starting a new church, and we're just new church in a new era, kind of same old church in new era, that kind of thing. But Jesus said something that serves as a basis for this conversation. He was with his followers at one point on his journey. His 12 disciples were kind of following him around. He had done a lot of his ministry, had done a lot of teaching, done a lot of things. And there was a lot of scuttlebutt, if you could say. Like there was a lot of rumors, and people were talking, and there was a lot of conversation happening about Jesus, because everywhere he went, that's all anybody talked about, because he's healing people, he's casting out demons, he's walking on water. People are talking. So anytime Jesus shows up, people are talking. And so Jesus decides at one point to turn to his disciples and ask them a very simple question. Yeah, and ask them this question. He says, "Hey, what are people saying about me? What are people, what's the word on the street, in a sense?" And they're like, "Well, hey, some people are saying that you're Elijah, you're one of these ancient prophets from Israel's history, and you've come back to the present. You've come back." It's like saying, in American politics, it'd be like, what are they saying about it? Well, you're like the new Abraham Lincoln, or you're the new George Washington. That's kind of the vibe they're saying. You're like Elijah, or maybe you were a resurrected version of Elijah, or you're these other prophets. And so they have this conversation about what the people are saying about Jesus, but then Jesus turns to the disciples and says this question. He says, "But what about you?" This is in Matthew chapter 16, verse 15. Jesus says, "But what about you?" he asked. "Who do you say that I am?" And that's a really big question. That's an important question. I think that question kind of echoes down through the ages. I think all of us, in some way or another, Jesus invites all of humanity to wrestle with that question. Who do you say that I am? What do you think of me? Right? That's a powerful, powerful question. So one of Jesus' most verbose disciples, Peter, who often was the first one to speak and usually the first one to need to apologize for something. Maybe some of you, feel his pain a little. But Simon Peter answered his first response. He says, "You are the Messiah, the Son of the living God." So Messiah, there's some cultural terminology here. Messiah, like an anointed one, the Savior. Within their current religious framework, they were waiting for a Messiah, an anointed one, a Savior, a Neo type, right? In the Matrix, like you're the one. They were waiting for Neo to show up, right? And so they're like, "Hey, Jesus, you're the Messiah. You're the one, the Son of the living God." And then Jesus says this. He says, "Blessed are you, Simon, son of Jonah, for this was not revealed to you by flesh and blood, but by my Father in heaven." Jesus is kind of saying like something powerful is happening here. Something more is going on. There's a spiritual dynamic to that awakening and that understanding that you have. And then Jesus makes this comment, and this is kind of the basis of a lot of what we'll talk about these next few weeks. He says, "And I tell you that you are Peter, and on this rock I will build my church, and the gates of Hades will not overcome it." Jesus' simple statement: on this rock, I'll build my church. Not necessarily on Peter. There's a lot of conversation saying it's on Peter. There's a lot of debate about, is it Peter? Is it his faith profession? The thing he says. And we're not going to get lost in those weeds. I think it's more about the profession that that Peter is making here. But he says, "I will build my church." And that's what I want us to hear from this little statement. Jesus says, "I'm going to build my church, and the gates of Hades won't prevail against it." We could have a big conversation about Hades and all that means, all what that means within Jesus' cultural framework. We're not going to have that conversation at this point either. We want to just focus on this little idea that Jesus says, "I am going to build my church." And really what he's saying is nothing's going to stop it. Now this idea of church, as Jesus is talking about here, so this is a foreign, like church as the way we think of it is not really at all what was in Jesus' mind in this moment, right? Because church gatherings like this and sing, it wasn't really happening in that, when we think of church, like Jesus hadn't died and rose again yet. The book of Acts hasn't happened yet with the birth of the church. All that, none of that's happened yet. Jesus is talking with the disciples, and he uses this word ekklesia. It's a Greek word ekklesia, which really just means it's like a called out, it's an assembly of people, a group of people who've kind of gathered for a purpose. It's a community, this ekklesia. When we think church, you might have a lot of different things that come to mind. It might be a building, right? The graphic I'm using here has this pretty sweet old church building from, I'm not exactly sure when, but it's really cool looking, this stone thing in this beautiful spot with the sunset and everything. But part of why I'm using that is not to say that the church is a building, but just to say that the church has a history. We're connected to a long history. Because the church isn't necessarily the building. The church is this called out community of people who are gathering together for a purpose. And Jesus is saying to his disciples here, he's saying, listen, I'm starting this community, this sort of world-changing community that's going to just keep expanding. It's just going to keep growing. Nothing's going to ultimately stand against it. It's like this massive wave that's coming on a shore, like it's just going to roll across the beach, this church. Now, what's interesting is, again, we have a lot of different things that come to mind when we think about church. And a lot of those things are rooted in our own personal life experience. I mean, that's normal. That makes sense, right? But church has meant and looked like a lot of different things over the history, over 2,000 years. Because even as Jesus is talking here, as the church began, as Jesus, the story goes on, Jesus died, and then he rose again 3 days later, and then the church is born, and the message of Jesus spreads across the world. And they began these churches. But they looked really different than what a lot of what we do now. There's some similarities and some differences, right? They gathered in homes primarily, right? That was a huge part of the early church movement. They were these followers of Jesus, and they gathered in homes. And they did do some singing. They had some songs and some singing, but they didn't have big bands like this, electric guitars and keyboards and all of that. That I don't know if you know that, but electric guitars are relatively new. They're not in the Bible. They should be, if there wasn't. But anyway, I digress. But the original church looked and felt different in certain ways than what we experience right now. It was in homes, and it was a lot more, kind of organic in that sense. The first 300 years, that's kind of what happened. And they actually, you might have been to a church at one point where everybody carried their Bible in, an analog version. Paper and leather and all of that, and maybe you still do that, and that's wonderful. But there's a season and sort of we do that less now because we have digital Bibles and all that kind of a thing, and we can put it on jumbotrons, the scriptures in the middle of our rooms. But that hasn't always been the case. And in the first few centuries, they didn't have Bibles like that. I don't know if you didn't know this or not, but they didn't do their morning devotions and open up their scrolls because they were on scrolls. The scriptures were on scrolls. Scrolls were really long. Nobody had a full copy of their scriptures in a scroll. You couldn't fit the whole thing in a scroll. And so for the first few hundred years, they had separate writings from the scriptures that were in separate scrolls, and some people had some, and some people had others, and few people had all of them. And after time, actually there was a technological advancement. I don't know if you know this. I'm going to nerd out here a little bit for you. But, we mentioned scrolls. Eventually, the technological advancement went from scrolls to something that was called a codex, right? Which is actually more like a book. So scrolls are really tough because you got to roll it up and you have to find the place. Eventually they said, hey, wait a minute. We could make pages right on both the front and the back, and then we could tie them together, and it could function like a book. That was an advancement in technology once they figured out how to do that, now a church could have a whole Bible. They could put the whole Bible together, and they could put it in one big codex, and the church could have that, but the people didn't have those. Right? That was way too expensive, and most people probably couldn't read, and so there was all this kind of the church was there was so much that felt different and changed, but technology changed things, advancement changed things, culture changed things. Before you know it, they have codexes. And then, a few hundred years later, 1,000 years later, this guy Gutenberg comes along and invents a press, and all of a sudden, we can make copies of Bibles, and people can carry them around. You can have them in your home, and that changes the church. That changes spiritual dynamics. That changes so much. Technological advancement moves the church along in a lot of ways. And you say, well, is that good or bad? But it's something, right? Good things come from it. Sometimes unhelpful things come from it. But today we're living in this age where technology is advancing rapidly and culture is changing, and it's happening faster than ever, right? Does anybody else feel this? This sense of COVID is just flipped a switch and everything changes. Now we all went online, and we're watching online church, and that's great, right? We're watching online church. We can't meet together, but do we want to do that forever? I don't know. It's good to get together too, right? And so, like, culture changes, the world changes, everything's changing, and the church is this community of people that's engaging with the message of Jesus, learning to follow Jesus, being on a spiritual transformation journey, right? And so, this over 2,000 years, Jesus said, I'm going to build this church. This community is going to continue to sort of morph and expand, and some technology is going to change it. Some cultural dynamics might change it. There's a lot of things that are happening that kind of shape what the church feels like, looks like, is like in a community, in a culture during a specific time and a specific era. And I'm not here to say, oh, that one's bad and that one's good. This one's sinful and that one's not sinful, right? Jesus has given us a lot of flexibility within the framework of the story of the scriptures to learn to follow him as the ecclesia, as the church, in ways that work in that place and time. And so we're going to spend the next few weeks, just kind of thinking about what are some aspects of a brave new church? What does it look like in this current time and place? What are some of the things that we should care about? What are some of the ways in which we're morphing and changing and developing as churches, as communities, as followers of Jesus? Because I came from a spiritual tradition that's sort of like, hey, we all figured it out. The great-grandparents or the ancestors figured it out. They have everything 100% right. Don't mess with it. Just keep doing it exactly the same, right? Maybe some of you come from a spiritual tradition that was a bit more like that. I'm going to be suggesting that through this series that there's things that throughout 2,000 years, part of what made the church work and how Jesus has continued to move it is that it had a flexibility to it. It had a capacity to change and to grow and to learn. We misunderstood some things and we need to make some corrections. Oh, we've totally missed this whole part of what it means to be a follower of Jesus in the world. We need to make sure we add that back in, right? Those aren't bad things. That's a good thing. And so as we kind of think about some of the things Mindy was sharing with us a few minutes ago, and as we move into these next few weeks, I just want to say, I'm excited about, I believe in this church. I believe in Life Church. This has been a huge part, it's probably the big part of my life for the past 10 years, investing here, serving here, creating this church with many of you who've been here. And I believe in who we are as a church. I think that Lancaster County needs Life Church. I don't know if you feel this way or not, but I think some of the things, some of the message, some of the things we say here, some of the things we believe and how we talk about it, so many of you have you've been in some spiritual environments where you were rejected because of your sexuality. You might have been rejected because of something you believe. You might have asked a question and you were kicked out, or you were ostracized, or maybe you have some sins in your past that have always just been a scarlet letter on you, and you just haven't been able to fit or interact fully and freely as yourself in a spiritual environment. And you can here. And Jesus invites us all to his table, right? There's no fences to jump over. There's not an inner circle that you have. Jesus tore down the fences, and he invites us all to his table together, right? And that's a huge thing we believe here at Life Church, and a part of who we want to be in this community. So we'll keep thinking about what are some of the specifics of that in the next few weeks. And I want you to be thinking, as Minnie encouraged us, are you at a place where you could engage? Are you at a place where you could invest? Are you at a place where you could serve or just be a part of the community in maybe a more in a new way or a bigger way than maybe what you have? Are you at that place in your journey? Because we think at the end of the day, this is a good place to invest and a good place to be. This church, I believe in it, and I believe in this community and its need here in this community. So anyway, I'm going to wrap up. That's my 19-minute sermon this morning. I told the team earlier I was expecting an award for that. So anyway, let me pray for us and we'll finish our morning. Jesus, thank you so much for this day, for these few minutes together here as we think about the church, as we think what it might be to be the church in this generation, in this time and place. And also, Lord, how might we be involved? How might we be connected to it? Are there some ways in which we can help be a part of making a difference through this community? And so we're grateful for this morning. We're grateful for the work that you've done, for the message that you've given to us. And we're just grateful for this time together and for those who've gathered here. It's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
When I am a wasteland, you are the water. When I am the winter, you are the fire that burns to find me. When I am a long night, you are the sunrise. When I am a desert, you are the river that turns to find me. What have I done to deserve love like this? What have I done to deserve love like this? Your voice like a whisper, breaking the silence. You say there's a treasure. You look till you find it. You search to find me. What have I done to deserve love like this? What have I done to deserve love like this? I cannot earn what you so freely give. What have I done to deserve love like this? What have I done to deserve love like this? What have I done to deserve love like this? I cannot earn what you so freely give. What have I done to deserve love like this?
Well, thanks so much for coming this morning. I hope you had a good morning with us. It was informative and helpful, and we enjoyed the music from the band as they led us in some songs together. And so remember, if you are interested in maybe taking a step or just beginning to figure out if there's a right next step for you in engaging here at Life Church, open the app. There's a spot on there. Interested in volunteering, you can click that and follow those links, answer those questions, and we'll follow up with you. So we're glad you're here this morning. Thanks for being here. For those of you watching online, thanks for joining us there. And we look forward to kind of the next few weeks kind of thinking through a brave new church and what that means. And we'll be hanging out here on the lawn or in the lobby. So hang out a little bit and say hello, meet somebody new. So hope to see you back next week. But until then, Godspeed.